listening to Breakfast with Mark and Anne. Shall we have a quick look through the front pages?
Sunday papers.
Right, on the Observer. Well, it's reporting on the concerns of some senior Tory members. They believe any failure of Liz Truss to address the cost of living crisis will lead to a substantial loss of party members. Interesting. It also shows the amount of leaves that have fallen on the ground already. If you've got a picture that's anywhere near as good as that, do send it in. Autumn is happening early.
On to the Sunday Mirror, which goes with the headline, Wastminster reporting that more than 1,000 tonnes of subsidised food has been discarded from the Palace of Westminster's restaurants and cafes.
The Sunday Telegraph reports that Liz Truss has vowed to halt NHS doctors' exodus as the healthcare crisis continues.
On to the Sunday Express, its front featuring the Prime Minister Boris Johnson's latest assurance, saying that Brexit freedoms will bring more choice to all.
And the front page of the Sunday Times reports that university bosses are arguing for a higher tuition fee for British students amidst financial difficulties. They say that UK students should pay around £24,000 a year for a degree. Currently, of course, the annual tuition fee is £9,250.
That's a big increase, isn't it? Huge.
It's what foreign students
that's the figure
pay.
that the foreign students pay, so they're trying to get it up to that level.
Well, with us right now, Fraser Myers, who's Deputy Editor of Spite, and Emma Burnell, who's playwright and journalist. And what are we looking at first, Fraser? Oh, fresh wokeism in the Mail.
So, people will have heard a million stories about trigger warnings being slapped on classic texts for students, but now even academics are being given their own content warnings. So at Queen Mary University, a list has been circulated of books that people should, lecturers and academics should read in order to stay fresh on equality and race issues. One of the books is the classic To Kill a Mockingbird. But along with this list, the lecturers have been told that some of these issues are sensitive and, could hurt their well-being, and that if they get upset by reading these texts, they should stop and take a moment and take a breather. And it's, so essentially we're having the kind of infantilization of lecturers as well as students now. If anyone thought that the kind of problems that we've had with free speech on campus was just a problem for students or, young kind of fresh activist types, no, this is really part of.
But who is doing this? Who is saying this?
This is the Human Resources Department in the university.
It's not the exam board.
No, it's not the exam board.
On the text.
This is the Human Resources Department essentially telling academics they've got to get more with the programme on race, while also maybe it'll be a bit difficult for you to read these texts. Even like To Kill a Mockingbird, which I read as a school child.
Yeah.
And it's a brilliant book, and it's worth reading and worth knowing, particularly if you're studying certain subjects at university.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
What's going on here?
It strikes me as really counterproductive to actually what they're trying to do. If what you want to do is say these topics are really difficult and hard, and we should be reading about them.
Open your eyes.
Absolutely. And some of the most incredible literature that I've read has led me to. I cried myself to sleep reading the ending of His Dark Materials. I have absolutely learned so much about the experiences of other cultures and people who have lived very, very different lives to me by reading about them, being touched by them, being emotionally moved by them. Now, I will say that if anyone tried to force me to read, say, Charlotte Bronte again, it would be bad for their well-being. There are some classics I can live without.
But the point is you did read it once.
I did read it once. It's my choice. I will never, ever
Can I just ask,
again.
the media dismiss this as crazy wokery. Is somebody trying to undermine our culture here? Because it's actually getting ridiculous, isn't it?
There's not a concerted effort. These things are coming from all different places all the time. It's not as if someone sits in a room and thinks, how can we undermine the university?
It does seem to be a fashion, though.
It's a huge fashion.
But it's a dangerous.
It's a fashion that will go out of fashion.
These people think they're doing good, of course.
And I think the problem is they do think they're doing good, but it's like all of the things, the unintended consequences that we, instead of broadening our understanding of each other's lives, we narrow our horizons.
And
that emotional integrity is important.
Yeah, this was always the point of a university education, is that it opened your eyes to other things and broadened your horizons. And University of Sussex, there was a case there where the lecturer ended up actually losing, or stepping away from the job as a result of all this. I mean, that's awful, isn't it?
It is awful, and it's not what we should be asking academics to do, behave and be. Those academics are grown-ups. They should be reading difficult texts. They
Push and challenge your
pushing and
students,
challenging the students should push and challenge them back, and they should be discussing these issues, not leaving them under the carpet.
That's the thing. It's on the exact issues that people who we might call woke say we should be talking about, say we should be discussing, say we should be focusing on. It's on those issues that actually where the debate is narrowest, where you're told maybe you should be careful about reading that book, even if it is, a progressive book.
That Othello, don't touch that.
Yeah, very dangerous.
These are not dangerous far-right pieces of literature that are being, having trigger warnings slapped on.
But
They're usually progressive.
There's a reason they're classics. It's because they're darn good, usually,
Yes.
and certainly worth experiencing.
The quality of the writing and the message is timeless.
Emma.
Yes.
Yes.
Mirror.
Take us to the P&O workers. What's happening there?
So the ball has been dropped, basically. There was a great deal of outrage when the P&O ferry workers were sacked by video message and instantly replaced by agency workers. And then the boss from the company that runs them, a company, by the way, that has a 52% increase in its profits at this time, went to Parliament and said, we totally had a legal obligation to consult the unions, but we decided not to. So he literally admitted breaking the law, and nothing is being done about it. And that sets a really, really difficult, dangerous precedent. It is really important that corporations are not seen as above the law, and that when they treat their workers in ways that are illegal, that something is done about that.
Yeah, the parent company is Kuwaiti owned, isn't it? That they're involved in, even though you think it's P&O, there's another entity.
Yeah, but they're still, if they're practicing in this country, they should be.
Our industrial
their
law.
workers are from this country. They should be responsible.
This is still, though, subject to a civil case, we understand.
Still subject to a civil case, so there is still some court case coming through. So there may be fines, but what there won't be is criminal sanctions, and that's really important.
Yeah.
Fraser, if it gets too cold and we can't afford to heat our homes this winter, because isn't it rumoured that our bills, the cap is going to go to
6,000.
That is an absolutely terrifying bill to have to think about. Then we can at least go along to our local library.
So local libraries, various kind of council-owned buildings are going to be turned into heat hubs or warm hubs for people to gather in the daytime. Now, this is some kind of solution, I guess, but it's just a
Are they actually being instructed to do this?
They're coming forward and saying we should do this, I think, because they are also struggling with their bills.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Surely your local council is going to say we can't afford to heat the library.
This is one way of them saying, we're struggling with our bills, let's make it useful. Central government, please give us some more money to stay open in the day. I mean, one of the Observer gives an example of a kind of local science centre whose electricity bill has gone up, from £9,000 a year to £50,000 a year. We forget that small businesses, local authority run institutions, swimming pools, things like that. They don't even have the energy cap.
No.
We're talking about we're worrying about the £6,000 rise. Their use of gas is not capped. It's going to go out of control. A lot of businesses are going to go out of business.
Meanwhile, Paul Drum of GLLL, a charitable social enterprise operating libraries in Greenwich, South East London, the borough's libraries already spent £28,000 on new seats and other furniture to prepare for the influx of visitors expected over the winter.
Because people are going to be, they can't stay indoors in the cold. They're going to be flocking to their local library.
I mean, we're not alone in this. I think Germany's got a similar scheme, isn't it, that they're putting into action?
Exactly. Germany kicked this off quite early on because their crisis is arguably going to be even worse than ours.
The Russian gas.
Yeah, if Russia turns off the gas, then Germany's in a deep
There has to be an upside to it as well. Actually, it's very good for people to get out and
go to
a library and mix with other people, I guess.
Well, it's good to choose to, not great to be forced to. I'm not at my best when I'm forced to be social, but when I choose to go out and see people, I'm much better off. And I think that's the problem.
Will they have to relax the shh rule?
Well, it sounds like they'll have to, because even just three people sitting there is going to be more noisy than than you would normally expect.
Especially if you take your kids.
Especially if they're taking children. And I think libraries these days are not the sort of traditional thing that we think they are. They are hubs of lots of services.
Yeah.
But they are built buildings, quite often old buildings, that are going to need to be insulated and well heated in order to help people get through what is going to be a very difficult.
Well, let's move on to the leadership stories, Emma. And apparently, Team Truss is getting very upset.
Team Truss are not happy.
What's happened?
Well, first of all, Michael Gove did a classic Michael Gove move and stuck the knife in at the last minute, despite it being far too late for it actually to hurt Liz Truss's chances, which are basically a dead cert of becoming the next Prime Minister, but certainly enough to her image in going forward. At the same time, there was also a very, very not holding back column from Matthew Parris, who's a former Tory MP. They have come out swinging against both of them, in particular Matthew Parris, where they've dug out an old column of his from prior to a Clacton by-election, talking about being very rude about the people of Clacton and the kind of people that that sort of soft Tory, anti-Brexit Tory were very sneery about prior to the Red Wall being at the heart of Tory strategy. So there's what this indicates to me is that we may get an answer on September the 5th, but we're not going to get unity.
Yeah.
No, in fact, what this leadership election seems to be doing is that it's not a very edifying spectacle for anyone at the moment, is it?
Yeah.
And according to the Observer, you were just showing me, it's turning people off.
Yeah.
Politics generally.
Absolutely, yeah. It's a horrible spectacle, and this kind of vicious infighting and briefing against briefing, when actually what the country wants to hear are answers to exactly the things that we've just been talking about. People are going to libraries because they can't heat their homes. I don't think that they care about what Matthew Parris said about Clacton 20 years ago.
Unless they read it in a library. Yeah.
There's a bit of a narcissism of small differences as well in the campaign. That seems to be why things are so heated, because there isn't actually a huge ideological gulf between Rishi and Liz.
It's like student politics, isn't it?
Exactly, lots of little...
It's all those people who learnt their viciousness in student politics coming to the fore.
And do you sense from the Labour Party as well that Sir Keir Starmer is sort of sitting back and letting this happen now? Sort of warming his hands for,
I think so, but he shouldn't get too ahead of himself. I mean, we should remember...
Or should he? Let's definitely play the front page of the Observer, as you're going to get Opinion, the latest poll for the Observer, and Labour now enjoying its biggest opinion poll lead in months, 8 points ahead, with Starmer also surging ahead of Truss. So the latest figures, Starmer at 28% is the best PM, Liz Truss dropping to 23%. So perhaps he doesn't have to do much.
Well, I think these are obviously really, really good, encouraging poll figures for Labour, but we have to remind ourselves there's practically no government at the moment. The kind of policies that people are waiting and expecting to hear that some of the papers suggest are going to come out when Liz becomes PM. People are waiting to hear what's going to happen with their energy price cap, what help they're going to get. That's not happening. So it is an unusual period, and most new prime ministers get a bit of a honeymoon. So we'll see how things shake up when Liz, we assume, takes office.
We shall see.
I don't think we can assume anything yet.
No.
But good news is that Boris Johnson's back in town. There's a big, as you can imagine, holiday pictures of him with his top off, actually, in Greece.
Really want
but apparently, no, you don't want to see it. It's a small picture. But,
At least someone's having fun.
But he was having fun, but he apparently flew back into Britain yesterday and is ready to start work tomorrow.
Really?
That's what he said.
News just in. Yes. Thank you to both. We'll see you a bit later.
Thanks.
Now.